Hi everyone from Indonesia. Today I'll be doing a video to give some feedback and comment for the students in the typography class from University Pradita University. And I also want to say hi to everyone from Pradita University. And my name is Weng, and I'm a graphic designer from Malaysia. And I want to thank Irwan Hanoto, my friend, for inviting me to do this video to give some feedback for his students. Before I start, I just want to quickly use bahasa Malaysia to say a few words. Pertama sekali ya, saya ingin minta maaf dulu. Saya akan menggunakan bahasa English untuk bagi komen di video ini. Ini adalah kerana saya masih lagi keliru dengan dua-dua bahasa ini ya, bahasa Malaysia dengan bahasa Indonesia. Walaupun kedua-dua bahasa ini memang berasal daripada bahasa yang sama dan mempunyai banyak persamaan, tetapi saya masih lagi keliru. Dan ini juga saya rasa lebih sesuai untuk audience ataupun rakan-rakan kita di antarabangsa, international. Jadi minta maaf lah ya. I just told my friend in Indonesia that I apologize that I'll be using English instead of bahasa Malaysia, the Malay language, which is very similar to the Indonesian language, but because it is so similar, I often get very confused. So, in order for me to do this video comfortably, I think I better use English, and also good for in case anyone else from the international audiences listening to this video. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I graduated from Australia, like I said before. My name is Weng, and from Malaysia. I returned to Malaysia in 1993 or 92, and started involved in the design industry since then. So you can tell that it's like a long time ago. So I've been involved in designing. I also worked before as an illustrator, and also lectured in various colleges. I worked both as part-time and full-time lecturers, and I lectured over a whole range of subjects: typography, design, art, painting, drawing, illustration. And I basically have a great passion for typography and type. And now I'm a type designer. I focus a lot of time in designing types, basically types that are inspired from Malaysia or this region, what we call the Nusantara or the Malay archipelago. So I've been focusing a lot on type design, and you can see some of my typefaces here at the back. All right, let's get started. Okay, now I have decided to choose three students' works from this whole range of options that everyone has given me. The first student is Soal. Is that right? I pronounce your name. And second is Rifki, the second one. And third one is Million. Soal, Rifki, and Million. Now, there are reasons why I chose these three students' works, and I will explain a little bit a bit deeper later, a little bit more in detail later. There are some similarities between these three students' works, and also as I look through the students' works that my friend Irwan sent to me, these three works capture my attention. I will explain later what actually captured my attention. It can be good, and also at the same time, if you're not careful, it can be bad reason or not so good reason. Now, this doesn't mean that the other student works are not good. The reason I choose these 3 student works is because there's something I feel very obvious that I want to share with the rest of you. All right, so I'll be talking about their works, and I'll start talking about their strength, what they have done right, and that's why it captured my attention. Then I'll give some suggestions and tips how to improve the works, and also areas that they need to kind of pay attention to. Now let's start with sekarang. All right, the one with strong color, with Marilyn Monroe right in the middle of the work. Now, if you look at the color, it is the colors. I was first captured by the colors. That is the strength of this work. It's very pop art, very playful, very funky, and I think the color works very well for the image, the message of the image, which is you choose Marilyn Monroe right in the middle, and it reminds people of Andy Warhol's silk screen. And also the display type that you choose to experiment with, the Gothic typeface, that the way you treat that, and also the nature of the anatomy of the Gothic typefaces, it creates a lot of sense of playfulness, and it works very well with the entire image. And also I like the way you play like the dot screens effect. Now that's very clever in the sense that the dot screens is something that is very popular for silk screens and a printing technology that designers and artists will use a lot before computer was famous, and of course later we can achieve the same effect using computer. So that dot screen effect very interesting, and I think it kind of worked well with the entire overall image. And it also has that sense of a feel of a fashion, you know, mainly because of Andy Warhol and Marilyn Monroe, and so the overall feeling of the playfulness and color and the fashion is very good. Now, some areas that I feel you can improve. If you look at your works, let's see, it's looking from that side. I think it's on your on this side. I think my left hand side, top, where you have this section of all this text running down, italic text. Now I feel that those row of text, they are there, but they don't serve any purpose, or at least when you put them in slant of or italic, it doesn't serve any purpose. I think that angle of which italic is being slanted is a bit too much. And also, I also think that there are a little bit too many elements in the design that I think it kind of a little bit overkill. Sometimes you have a lot of these elements in a design that doesn't serve any purpose. You just put it there because you can afford to do so. Your computer allowed you to do so. So you put it there. You know, you have these lines across her face with different weight, and then you have some text across the nose and some text on the eyes, and then got all this line flying all over. And sometimes you can reduce those elements. It still can achieve the same purpose of what you wanted to achieve. Try to reduce unnecessary elements in your design. A design can be busy, it can be dynamic, lots of elements, but try to keep your design pure. Try to keep every element try your best to have a purpose. Now, one challenge I always ask my students in my class, especially when it comes to design, is this. When you begin to place something in a piece of design, whatever it is, it can be a dot, it can be a line, it can be a typeface that you choose, it can be a photograph. it's always helpful to ask the question why. It's a very good discipline and practice. So what am I trying to achieve with this? What kind of message I want to communicate? How does that particular element actually help to convey that message? What's the purpose of that line or that dot, or and especially now we have computers, we work a lot with computers. During my time, I went to art school, and there was a time where we were facing a transition from manual, using analog, to computer. So we understand design from a very traditional way. So when we use computer, we look at it, oftentimes we can look at it from a very traditional design point of view, and this whole aspect about being economic, and I will talk a little bit more about that. It might be a bit confusing for you. You can ask your lecturer, what does he mean, what do I mean by that? He will be able to explain to you. Now, a question that you can ask oftentimes when you have all these elements in your design is this: if I were to remove this element, would they make a difference? When you pack too many things in a piece of design, it can confuse the audience. It waters down your message. It's okay to keep your design dynamic. It's okay to keep your design busy, but try to have elements that doesn't serve any purpose. Try to remove them. Okay. So your computer allows you to do so, doesn't mean you have to put them all in it. Okay. Now let's look at the next piece of work. This is from Rifki. Yeah, Rifki. Hi, how are you, Rifki? Now again, the color is interesting. I was captivated by the colors. The colors with that strong yellow, orange, red, and strong black typography, and also this strong image in the middle at the front. It reminds me a lot of the silkscreen posters back in 80s and 90s in Australia, where you have just before computer were popular. So when you do your silkscreens, you have to have your colors, layers and layers on top of each others. So this piece of work actually reminded me of that effect. And also you have this Japanese woodcut image right in the middle, the famous the wave. It looked like Hokusai Great Wave, the famous Japanese woodblock printmaker in the middle. Now the textures is interesting. I like the way you handle the textures, how you play around with some of the typefaces, the display types, and also the image, the overall, there's this sense of textures. The image that you chose and the treatment of the type with the textures, and also with all those typefaces, lines of typefaces at the back with different weight, jumping here and there to create that kind of a reckless and jittery effects. And I think that really works well with the overall image, especially if you have the wave right in the middle. It creates that sense of dynamic, and the typography kind of try to bring out that feeling of that restlessness or dynamic. Now, in terms of typography, you have basically two pieces of big chunk of typography. Right in the middle, you have that wave image, and then on top, two corner, you have this big chunk of typography treatment that create a sense of balance diagonally, whether this way or this way, from the image that you can see from your screen. And I think the right bottom is from the way I look at it. It could be the other side from the camera where you looking, and you have the word what's that? Let me look at you have the word design, right? Design, and then on top you have the word. It took me a while to figure out what was that word. It was not very obvious. Typo or typography design or typographic design. I think the word typo or typography on top is a little bit weak. It's kind of neither here nor there. Now in typography or experimental typography design, you either make it readable, you can play around the types, but it's still readable, or you make it totally abstract, just let the shape and form of the anatomy of the typography or the typefaces speak for itself. Later I got some quick example to show you. So you either make it readable, meaning people by reading it still they can read typography or typo, or it's just one piece of abstract shapes of formed by all this anatomy of typefaces. But when you are neither this one or this one, it becomes weak. So you have to be very clear of your message. I did something quickly just to show you an example. It might not be the best design, but to illustrate a point, we look at here. Typography design. One look at it, you can read it. I play around with contrast and up and down and all that. Now the treatment of the typography is to basically convey the message of the entire design over there. And you can see if you want to create a sense, of course you can create a design that doesn't have any meaning, it's so abstract, all right? But it have to have some kind of message and feeling. I think in this case, I kind of feel if you have that wave and you want to play around with that, what do you call that, the dynamic, it's good to make it look like a piece of typography treatment, rather than, like I said, neither here nor there. If I were to judge that by the abstract typography put together, is not very good. But if I want to judge that by the readability of the playfulness of typefaces put together, it's not that either. So it's just a piece of elements, design element of form and shape that doesn't serve any purpose. You miss that opportunity to use typography, playfulness of typography, to experiment with that, to let it speak, to let it convey a message, to let the audience enjoy that playfulness of the typography. Now again, go back to the same feedback that I gave to our friend earlier on, Soal, that you ask yourself, what do you want to achieve with this? When you do a piece of design, when you put a piece of element in your design, what do you want to achieve? Okay, so I just quickly do this to show you what you can do. Now I don't know whether that's what you try to achieve with your assignment, but whatever it is, you have to be clear of your visual language. All right. And like I say, if this is about experimental typography, you can have other images, all right? You can have the wave, you can have Marilyn Monroe, but it will be good to always let the typeface be the hero of your works, because it's about typography. It's about experimental typography design. So it's good to have that as the hero, you know. And if you do it well, sometimes you don't even have to add any other images or photographs to convey a strong typographical design works. Okay, so just, and also another thing is when you play around with typography like this, I'm sure you learn it in art school, in a design school, where we call the Gestalt principles. I don't know whether that's how you pronounce it. I think that's German. Playing around with some of these visual principles, you know, balance, rhythm, emphasis, figure and ground, contrast, movement, and all these visual principles, apply that in typography. And typefaces, each of the letters, they have their uniqueness, the characteristics. When you experiment with typefaces, or you create a piece of experimental design with typefaces, with typography, you want to fully utilize on all those characteristics of the typefaces. All right, there are strengths in each of these letters. They are unique in the way they communicate message, they speak. So you want to use them. All right. Okay, let's move on to the last student, Million. Yeah, Million. Let me just put this aside for a while. Now, again, what captured me was the color. And I will talk a little bit about color and typography, the relationship between color and typography later. Now, I love the color. I think the color captured my attention. It's very cyberpunk, and it looks like a design for an album cover of a techno music. And I like the way you treated the colors and how the typefaces work with that face next to it. And I got a quick question as I look at that girl at the side. Is that Billie Eilish? Because I noticed that she got this blood coming out from her nose. You know, Billie Eilish is famous for making all this music video with blood coming out from nose or spider coming out from mouth. And anyway, so it looks very cyberpunk. It looks very futuristic and techno, and it's very exciting. Now at the bottom, you have this big pile of letters that put together. You have this big B at the top, and then a small little b drop down, and then all those lines, you know, mixed around with that big pile of typography. And I feel, again, that perhaps can loosen up a bit. It looks like a big pile of things. It's kind of like, the whole thing is supposed to be dynamic, but that big pile of things kind of like, you know, it make the whole thing heavy, and our eyes kind of fixated on that, but it is not dynamic, you know. So you can actually, like I say, reduce some of the elements. You don't have to use so many unnecessary elements to communicate the point. You like say, keep your design pure. Keep your design pure. Let me show you a quick example something that I did very quickly to illustrate the point. All right, so you can see the big B. I basically play around with the sense of dynamic, and also big and small contrast. And I don't have a lot of lines, right? This is a few, but it's enough. It's sufficient to create a sense of noisiness, busyness, movement, and all that. So in typography design, you can actually do that. I think that is a little bit overdone, the big pile of things that you see, I can replace whatever that you have there. I can replace that with any other element, dot or a square or a triangle, and still work. So what's the point using typography? You know, the reason why you want to use typography for the experimental assignment is to utilize the strength of letters and typefaces. Like say, each of these typefaces, each of these letters have their unique characteristics, and there are certain strength and a certain visual language. You want to make use of them. When you put them together in a playful way, it can create a lot of very exciting things. So same thing that I mentioned, you know, ask yourself a question, what kind of effect I want to achieve here? Okay. One quick comment about the word design, which is related to what I mentioned just now. The word design implies thoughtfulness, planning, calculation, arrangement, premeditated arrangement. It means some kind of planning and thoughtfulness have to be there. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot do anything that is experimental, accidental, or random, spontaneous. You know, I can throw things that thoughtlessness to make an accident happen on a piece of paper or on a computer screen, and it still look good. But you have to have some kind of thoughtfulness to that. You have to be able to design it. So go back to what I been trying to say, ask yourself the question, why have that line there? Why do I have that dot there? And especially think in terms of typography. What is the strength of using typeface for design instead of using just dots and lines? And what is the difference? There are strengths in typography. So in your works, if it is for experimental typography assignment, make full use of the strength and the characteristic of typefaces. I'll show you some quick example later after I finish it. So one last thing I want to talk about, quickly mention, is about color, just like I mentioned. Now, I mentioned that the reason why I chose these three works is because the colors are attractive. Now, color is interesting when it comes to typography and even design in general. Color is what we call a double-edged sword, a knife that can cut both ways. It is sharp on both sides. If you use it well, it can achieve a very effective result or capture people's attention. We all love colors, okay? We all are drawn to strong and interesting colors. But color, on the other hand, can be deceiving too. Let me explain what do I mean. Color can be very deceiving. Strictly speaking, a good piece of typographic works, a lot of time it works just black and white. You notice that this video, as you look at my video, I have this thing in the background, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt, my hair is black. There's not much of colors actually going on. And some of the works that I show you, that I did, all right, I really don't need colors to express that visual language. A good piece of typography works actually work well. Now that's the challenging things about being a type designer, someone who design typefaces like me. We have to keep looking at black and white all the time. No colors, and our eyes have to resist the temptation. We have to be trained to look at everything, the beauty, define beauty and aesthetic in black and white. The pure form and shapes that a typeface can offer to us. So I can add colors to that, no problem. But color, it depends how you use it. It should actually bring out the effect. It should not overkill. It should not kill the effect of the typography. A good piece of typography a lot of time works well just black and white, just like logo design. A good logo design, it works very well, strong impact, just black and white. That's the strength of typography. So it's okay to use color, and it's okay that I'm attracted to your works because of colors, but because we are talking about experimental typography assignment here, so I want to see the strength of typography being demonstrated in your works. So ask yourself a question: if you were to reduce all these works in black and white, would they still look good? Would they still look great in terms of typography? Yes. So let me quickly, one last thing, okay, before we end this video. One last thing. I just want to illustrate a point here of the strength of typefaces or letters. Okay. Now this is a typeface that I designed. It's called senyum. I think Indonesian word is the same word, means smile. It's a typeface that inspired by the Malay wood, traditional Malay wood carving in Malaysia. These four letters I chose, A, B, G, and M. It's not supposed to form any words. It's abstract, put together. But if you look at each of these letters, especially the way I designed it, there are uniqueness to each of these letters. They are unique. The anatomy of each of these letters has been designed or formed or shaped in a very unique way that it has a characteristic to that. Each and every one of this. Now, when you begin to put them together next to each other, So here, when I begin to put them together, you see that each of these letters begin to touch each others, and you still can pretty much recognize the letters A, B, G, and M, but you begin to see some dynamic begin to happen when they begin to touch each other, the form and shapes. They begin to marry together and they begin to create some kind of dynamics. But this is still very much, at this stage, the typeface, not the typeface, the letters, I still can recognize the letters, I can still read them, A, B, G, M. Now what happens if I begin to put them, cram them closer to each other and overlap on each other? Now, here you see that the letters are less recognizable. You still can read them, but there's a lot of dynamic going on with the form and shapes and the curves and all that, and that begin to create some very interesting visual effects. Now, what if I put them closer to each other, overlap? Now, that become more dynamic. It becomes something else. There's so much of possibilities can come up from here. All right, you can see the black and white and the curves and all that. Now, taking this, all right, I move one step further. I enlarge it. Now, when you enlarge it, it becomes a different effect. And here you find that the letter, you can tell that it's from some letters. You can kind of roughly guess, but it becomes more abstract. The attention is not on whether on what we call readability or legibility of the typeface, but it's on the abstract form and shapes. And that's the strength of typography and using design, using typefaces, or using letters for design, using typography for design. The uniqueness of each of these letters, there are strong visual language. When you put them together, it can create all kind of possibility, all kind of visual language. Now, I put them now at an angle, it becomes a different effect altogether, right? You can use that to communicate about music, you can use that to communicate about rhythm, you can use that to communicate about communication. There's so many possibilities that you can use that to communicate. And now I enlarge it even bigger, even larger. Then it becomes totally abstract. You see no letters at all. You see certain portion, certain form of the letters, but the attention is on the strong black and white abstract. Now, if you look at all this that I show you, there's no colors. It works. Sometimes it works even better without colors, or as strong as colors. You know, if you can add colors, no problem. But a good piece of typography should be able to work well in black and white, because there are interesting characteristics and personality to each of these letters. And that's the reason why we want to have experimental typography assignment, for you to understand and fully utilize and explore the possibility of each of these letters. They can be in lines, it can be in form and shape, but there's a lot of possibilities. Okay, so I'll stop here. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for bearing with me. Again, thank you very much, everyone. I hope one of these days I can go to Indonesia to spend some time with you guys we can do some exciting things and some exciting assignment on experimental typography. All right, thank you very much. See you.